My media director tells me that we forgot to greet each other in the very beginning. Yeah, would you
Like we,
mind?
we jumped in the yeah.
Yeah, we can greet each other and then say bye. Have you ever been to Vancouver before?
No, it will be the first time.
Oh,
No, it will
that.
be the very first time. I'm very excited, and this time my mother also comes because she wants to, she loves to travel, and once or twice a year, she we look at my concert dates and where she can come and join. She came to see me in Japan. She came to see me in Moscow also once. And when was the last big trip we had? Oh, in New York. We were in New York for my last solo Carnegie recital in Big Hall, and this time she chose to come to Vancouver, and she's
Mhm.
excited about this, and me too, of course.
Yeah, it's a marvelous city. Do you have any particular expectations?
No, no, actually, I'm just excited to discover. My mother is looking at a lot of things. She chose some activities, and I just want to improvise. I like improvisation, and not only music. When I travel, I will have a few days there, so I will let myself free to explore when I will have a bit of time, because obviously I will be busy with concert preparation, master classes. So I will see how much time I have left, maybe to do some things with my mother and also explore on my own. We will see.
How do you like environment in US and Canada in general, comparing to Europe?
Well, everything is bigger, obviously. Everything is bigger, there's much more space. I had very, very contrasted experiences in North America,
Hmm.
very contrasted, and I like this. I like the diversity of impressions. Going to Montreal, for example, was really different from going to Toronto. Toronto is just like, for me, it feels very much like an American US city, like a huge city full of students, a very young, energetic city
Hmm.
full of skyscrapers and hectic, business kind of
Hmm.
feeling. Montreal is very different. There is more like a hipster vibes, with more unexpected little places to discover, little cafes,
Hmm.
little spontaneous artistic things going on. Much less of this business-like kind of feeling that you find in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had wonderful experiences in Toronto playing in Kerner Hall. It is an absolutely gorgeous concert hall. The acoustics are amazing. I remember very well my concerts there, and I remember how much I enjoyed playing there, just as a personal experience. Because every concert is enjoyable in that sense that I share a lot with the audience. But in Kerner Hall, there is really something I got like really pleasure for myself to just playing in this house.
Hmm.
Absolutely wonderful. And I played also in this Toronto Symphony Hall
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
the orchestra plays. I played there with
Hmm.
orchestra.
Yeah, fantastic. And what do you think about Maison Symphonique in
Ah,
Montreal?
yes, this is where I played recital in Montreal. Well, I remember also very well. I remember the team, human. The Montreal experience was very human for me. I remember very well the team, the people of the team, Benoit of the Symphonic House. I remember Benoit Bilodeau. I remember spending time with him, and I'm fascinated by the language in general. I did like French literature studies, and in general, I'm still absolutely fascinated by language, and I would even say that my connection to music is very much through the prism of language. I belong to the family of musicians who really think that music is a language.
Hmm.
There are other families of musicians, and some think that no, it's about like sound in space. It's not like a language because, for example, a music cannot tell you that an apple is an apple, cannot tell you that a table is a table. So it doesn't have the same function as a language. But for me, it is a language in that sense that the most important things, that the feelings, the way, some of the most important things, the how to express the loss of someone important in our life, like the how to express some different shades of anger, these different shades of despair. There is nothing more precise than music. Maybe poetry can, but still, music can sometimes be even more precise in the depiction of the feelings.
Hmm.
So I do believe that music is a language, but I know that it's a controversy. Still, I am passionate in general about language, and being in Montreal, being in Quebec, as a Frenchman, is very special. I love to spend time with Quebec people because then I get to hear my language spoken differently, with
Mm.
completely different intonation, with different vocabulary, different structure, and this is very fascinating for me. And I love to actually be to have something in common, but at the same time very different. I guess that as a Russian speaker yourself, you know what I mean
I,
because you can go to Mongolia and there will be like Russian speakers there, to Kazakhstan, to many places, and you will actually create connection. But at the same time, is this not the same Russian than you speak when you are in Moscow?
but I believe that connection between French and Quebec French is even more bizarre because this English influences and different. You're right; they have different vocabulary. I know because we spent in Montreal over 4 years, and my parents living in Montreal. It's fascinating city. You said you just recently moved. That's why we see an empty shelf beside you. Is there any particular happy reason?
Well, yeah, I was living in this place in Paris for 7 years, now almost 8 years,
Mm.
and I need some fresh air. So I will keep these flats. I will put them on rent
Mm.
with my piano. So it's a bit special for me because I will leave this place with the piano in the place because the tenant will most probably be a concert pianist as well. So the flat will still have the musical vibes. This was very important for me to find actually to find someone to that would actually that this flat keeps its function of hosting a musician because it's completely soundproof here.
Yeah,
It's a little
I heard this from your previous interviews. Yes, I was, wow, this is very thoughtful. I was because I was wondering how can you practice full passion, being in Paris because we know that apartments yet very well done and old apartments, but still, so you put some effort in soundproofing your environment
actually the reason why I bought this place is that it was already
already soundproofed.
yes, and it's really like a cabin. No, it's more than a cabin. So you have like double walls. You have like a distance between the walls and the building
Hmm.
and this system. And it's really so it reduces the surface of the original room very much. But it's
Mhm.
really nobody hears nothing in the common parts of the building. In other flats, there's nothing. I can play super loud, some Rachmaninoff or Prokofiev at 4 in the morning.
Hmm.
Nobody hears anything. So that's why I jumped on this flat when there was like a mail loop with a friend musician, and this was my the first change, the first thing I did after my life
Mhm.
changed 10 years ago with this Tchaikovsky competition in 2015. And I started to earn my life properly by doing concerts, which I mean, I jumped from a situation where I was like studying and hardly making a living to a situation where I was like a concert pianist earning very well. And the first thing for me was actually to find a place to put a
Mhm.
piano and to have a place where to practice without asking anyone. Because I prepared the Tchaikovsky competition by using other people's piano. I didn't have my own piano. I had my little flat in the center of Paris, and I was basically using this flat just to sleep.
Mhm.
My life was crazy at that time. I was playing in a bar. I was in a piano bar, accompanying singers to make a bit of money, giving lessons. In the early morning, I went to the conservatory to make sure I would have a room to practice. Then sometimes 3 days a week, when we were really working hard with my teacher, Rena Shershevskaya, I took a train to a place, which was like 1 hour to get there, and then 1 hour back, giving lessons in the afternoon, going to the piano bar in the evening, just hopefully 2 hours of practice in the morning in the conservatory. It was really mad. When I think about this time, I was maybe sleeping like 3 or 4 hours a night. I was eating badly. I was very skinny. I was literally fighting. I believed in what I was doing, the preparation of this competition
Mhm.
with my teacher, and I was really, of, of course, I was not thinking about getting anything there. But I was totally committed and totally involved in that
Mhm.
process. I would not live like this anymore. I tell you, just fighting for getting enough money, like to pay the lessons, to pay the rent, and to not sleep at all almost. And no, it was a crazy life. I lived like this for maybe 2 or 3 years, but I didn't have a piano, and at that time it was either I would go early morning in a conservatory, but after 10, you could not get a room there.
Hmm.
There were maybe 100 pianists who wanted to practice and 10 rooms available. So you had to stay on the line. I didn't have the time to be on the line. I cannot
Hmm.
just have the luxury. I could not have the luxury to wait for 1 or 2 hours because I needed to make a living.
Hmm. Yeah, Russians have a very silly, maybe silly, expression that a real artist has to be hungry.
Well, I was,
Yeah,
at
so
the time I
you see,
was.
it worked. So it was proper way of preparing for Russian competition. We will go back to this, of course. I'm very curious to hear about your experience studying with Rena, Shereshevskaya, going to Moscow for the first time. Because we played in this hall, and it's fantastic hall, and the environment there is very unique. But since you are coming to Vancouver on a family day, February 17th. So I would love to ask you to tell us about your family and your environment when you were growing up.
Okay, my family. Um, so there are. It's difficult for me. It's straight. I have to go into intimate things straight because uh, I told this to my mother the other day during Christmas. I told her that I have almost no memory at all of the time when my parents were together. Because my parents divorced when I
Hmm.
was the year 2000, which
Hmm.
is approximately the time when I started to be very much into music. So before the age of 9, 10, it's very difficult for me to have memories of my parents together. So my family memories are somehow split in two. The ones about like the part of my family around my mother, and the part of my family around my father. And it's still very much like that. And I didn't solve that. I
Hmm.
didn't go to a therapist to solve this, but sometimes it's a bit heavy on me that I got split into, because of this divorce. Um, so the family on the side of my mother is a small family because my mother is the only child. I was since a very early age very close to my grandmother, so the mother of my mother. We had like kind of a very special relationship, a lot of affection, a lot of tenderness, a lot of mutual understanding, not requiring words. And she was very supportive of
Hmm.
me, like fighting to get on the musical path. She was very supportive. She almost didn't work during her life. She started working with her husband. So my biological grandfather died, so she had to actually make a living, and she did like little jobs, but she didn't have a lot of money. So her kind of support didn't have to do anything with money. It was not money related. It was more like human warmth. And I always found kind of a shelter in her
Hmm.
place when I visited her. She passed away last year. No, 2 years ago. Actually, yesterday was the anniversary of her passing away. 2 years ago, she died in my arms. We were actually on her side with my mother. It was a very very special moment. My mother, me, and my grandmother, her mother. A very special moment. So on the side of my mother, she was really important, and also my grandfather. So the one I consider as my grandfather was not my biological grandfather, but he also passed away last year. And I had a very close relationship with my grandparents in general on both sides. With my parents, I would say the relationship is like a work in progress. It's not very original. I guess we are all in the same boat with that. Um there's a lot of love, but not always a lot of understanding, not always the
Hmm.
patience to understand. When I started to get really involved in music making, I kind of started to build my own castle inside. I built my own shelters, my own systems,
Hmm.
because I very quickly understood that I could not share much of the most important things related to that when the music popped out. I was involved in art. I was very sensitive to art in general, but not. I didn't have someone around in my family or among my friends to really um, give me a hand and really lead me to some discoveries, artistic discoveries. So it was very basic. My parents had interest in art and they actually showed me some things, but on a very not superficial, but a very basic level. And I was extremely curious. I wanted to know more, everything related to art. I actually applied, I went to drawing lessons, drawing and painting and sculpting a bit. And I was very super passionate about it. But when I discovered music, and it was thanks to a kind of a revelation I had when I listened to randomly to a Mozart piano concerto, I had the luxury to be alone in my house sometimes at the age of 8, 9 years old. And my parents had a lot of CDs, mostly
Mhm.
pop and rock music. And among them, there were a few classical music CDs. And just like curiosity, I just put them in the sound system and just to know what it's about. And I was alone in the house, putting very loud the music. And this is how I discovered classical music that I had really like I was completely all my soul went upside down. I was nothing was the same after that. It was like the first time, speaking about language, the first time I understood a voice talking to me. I really had the impression that the music speaks, it tells something. And it became also very intimate, but at the same time, I got crazy about this and I wanted to share. I asked my parents about that. I asked my friends, what is this extraordinary thing I didn't know about? And most of the reactions I got were kind of lukewarm because, classical music, yeah, okay, it's nice. Culturally, it's like going to the museum from time to time, yes, incredible. Mozart, yeah, Milos Forman, Amadeus, Beethoven, yeah, the deaf guy, yeah, sometimes angry against the sky, and all these like kind of pictures that everybody has in his mind, but nobody listens really to the music of these guys. And I wanted to talk about what this music is about, what it speaks about, and I wanted to meet with the Mozarts and the Beethovens of our time. Where are they? I wanted to know what it's. This music is so much alive. It talks to me now, as the kid I am. So I want to know more about this. So, but I was very frustrated, and that's how actually I turned inside my look. I was looking for someone to talk to about this,
Mhm.
but then I became my only friend in all that time for a lot of time actually.
Mhm.
And I started to explore. I started all my pocket money. I kept for a while, and then when we went for one day, where we were living like 1 hour away from Paris in the country, and when once or twice a year we went to Paris, I insisted to go to a music like a bookstore,
Mhm.
and I spent basically all my pocket money in scores. At that time, beginning of the 2000s, there were no IMSLP. There was no like you were not and there was, but in a way there was a kind of magic to go to know I want to buy this Scriabin score that I heard on a CD. I didn't have I was underage, so I had to ask my mother. I made like some lists. I was subscribing to some all the piano magazines in France that you could have, and I was reading the reviews. I was making lists of the CDs. I told my mother, okay, take this to the library, take this and everything. I was listening to headphones, like taking notes very carefully about what I heard. At the age of 10 or 11 or something, I was really taking this extremely seriously. And all my pocket money went to, okay, I heard this piece, I want the score. I want the score of this Prokofiev sonatas. Oh, the Dover score, no, Bouzet and Oaks, that is like 60 euros. Oh, most of my pocket money, but I want this, I want these sonatas. Now you find everything for free on the internet, which is not very good, I think, but can
Mm.
help some. Um,
Can I ask you, do you remember that particular recording and maybe number of concerto, maybe performer who really spoke to you?
yeah, the version I remember very well. It was like Nabil Mariner conducting and Brendel playing.
Mm.
Not the worst.
Yeah. What was the number of concerto? Do you
The
remember?
concerto was the C major, so it was number 21 with
20,
the
21. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
slow movement in F major. Yeah.
Fantastic. We definitely will find this recording and will recommend our listeners and parents because I'm
That
pretty
was
sure this will be listened by many parents, so they will know what to add to their music libraries for sure.
well, there was this how do you call it? You call it the same word in English, I think, epiphany,
Yeah, Epiphany, yeah.
about like a beauty, like a aesthetic
Hmm.
shock. And this happened, it was really like implying all my senses were conveyed there because I was listening, it was during the summer, and I put that in my the CD in my room, in my bedroom, and the window was open, and I could see some leaves and a bit of a very gentle wind in the leaves and a bit of sun rays on the leaves. It was extremely beautiful. And this warm air, calm, peaceful air from the summer, that it's very soon will be the holidays. You remember as a child what it is when you can feel already that the things are dying, slowing down a bit, like the lessons are falling apart,
Hmm.
that you
Hmm.
say, okay, now you can do whatever you want. And you have this relaxed moment, and before the summer holidays, this gentle air of the summer coming, and also this melancholy that goes together with it. That you will have to wait a bit, like before seeing your friends again and seeing all these games and all these glances that are in the school class and in the classroom and so. So yes, I was in my room sitting down, and I remember myself like looking out through the window when listening to this. You know, it was incredible. There was just like it was just like a parallel universe that was the real universe. It was like I discovered that I was lost in a parallel universe that made no sense, and finally the music brings me where it is the real universe,
Mm.
where the real present moment happens.
Mm. What do you think about importance of listening to classical music in the early age?
I was at my time in the 90s when I grew up. I was watching, of course, all the Steven Spielberg movies, all the Chris Columbus movies, and you know that at that time still there were symphonic scores, like fully scored, like the big John Williams, the big,
Hmm.
or even like the Lord of the Rings, the big Howard Shore, the big. At that time, they were like really symphonic theme music. So
Mm.
it is classical music. It is actually classical music, and some of it is of real quality.
Hmm.
So in that time, all the kids were like looking at these blockbusters, looking at Home Alone or Jurassic Park or whatever, or Hook, for example. They were actually listening to classical music, but it is always related to picture.
Hmm.
And I think that somehow this is more or less all the time it works like this also when you had like Disney doing this Fantasia movie, and it became very important for several generations of kids.
Hmm.
There is, I guess, for the kids a way to listen to classical music related to a story or related to a picture. I kind of think that for kids to listen to classical music just for the sake of just enjoying, like sitting down, not moving, and just listening to the music, I think it's a bit ambitious. I think that somehow the story, the picture helps to actually get to know. And Peter on the Wall, for example, that there is a story you can follow, you can recognize the animals in with the make the connection with the
Hmm.
instruments of the orchestra. I think this is very good. But just like sitting and listening to for example, a Beethoven symphony, and without any clue, without any, I think it's a bit ambitious. Of course, if you are like as a parent, for example, your kids are running around and you are listening when cooking, for example, you are listening to some classical music, then the kid gets to also
Hmm.
have this in the background. But it's again something else. The background is also something, musical background is something else. I really think that listening with really attention, the same attention that you would have by reading a masterpiece of literature.
Hmm.
When you read War and Peace, where you read like the Alexandria Quartet of Lawrence Durrell, or something like this, a masterpiece like this, you don't do anything else. You are just like taken by the book and you are just doing that. And this is the only activity. You are completely committed to the act of reading. This kind of reading and this kind of listening, I don't think you can really develop it. I don't believe it's so easy to develop it as a kid.
So what you're saying that classical music has a higher barrier for unprepared, unsophisticated listeners. So you have to be tiny bit prepared before you proceed to listening.
You know what? I'm not sure that it's actually for music, classical music. I think that I will make a little nuance. Like I think that classical music has more to give probably by this concentrated listening than maybe other kinds of music. But I think that it's more like a way to listen to music in general.
Hmm.
I remember that as a kid, even like before discovering classical music, I was listening with an kind of exaggerated attention even to the pop things, to the rock things. I was curious about the structure. I was listening to the lines, the musical lines that are not the ones that are the most like in the front, more listening to the back lines in the track, starting to divide the musical information. My brain was already doing this work. So obviously I had something to do with music, but it's really the classical music like spoke to me because kind of I realized that to get more of it, I have to be. It takes me more. It's being more committed to listen
Mhm.
to that gives uh, a much bigger load of things. So, but I do think that a lot of pop music tracks have a lot to give if you listen to them carefully. Listen to Michael Jackson carefully. Listen to David Bowie. Listen to Elton John. Listen to the Beatles with an advanced level of attention and a good sound system. You
Mhm.
will listen like a crazy amount of things that
Mhm.
they are different, and it's really like the act of reading. I do that because you know what? For most people on Earth, music has a function, a social function. It can be, it's not, I mean, in the countries that are still where religion is still very important, there is a religious function to just gather and to sing together and to just feel more connected to the spirit or whatever.
Mhm.
But the main social function of the music now is dance. Is dancing. Is going to in a nightclub. Is enjoying your beer with some like pop in the background. And the main information that you get there is the rhythm. You
Mhm.
know. And I remember like I invited a friend to one of my recitals in Paris here, and it was the first classical concert he attended. And I loved our conversation afterwards because he didn't feel embarrassed at all to tell me like straight that he didn't like it. He didn't like it, but he said it like very, very warmly. He said, "No, I don't get the thing." And I said, "Okay, tell me why." It's very interesting because I'm used to play for an audience that they already know, they already have like 10 versions of the piece in the head, they already love this music. And somehow it's nice for me, but I would get more excited to be more confronted, more
Mhm.
to an audience that I don't have already, that is not, how to say, convinced already.
Convinced. Mhm.
But he told me, well, you know, when I listen to some music, when I work, or when I do jogging, or when I go to the bar with my friends, or in my car, I like when it's like, and he was showing to me that the thing he was talking about was really the rhythmical element.
Drive. Yeah.
He pointed the finger at the fact that in the recital in the Philharmonie, in the Paris Philharmonie, he was looking around and seeing all these people taking so much pleasure listening to something he could not understand because he was looking for the beat and and he could not find the beat.
Mhm.
And I explained to him that is exactly the reason why I'm so passionate about the classical music is that it's probably one of the very few musical genres in which the rhythm is a parameter that moves so much. Even like in jazz, in most of the jazz, in most of the pop, in the rock, you have like a square beat.
Mhm.
And in most of the folk music, it's very square. And if you are out of the square, you're out of rhythm and you cannot play. In the classical music, it's different. You have like even like some of the greatest performers that probably had a very weird sense of rhythm and they would be unable to clap in their hands regularly because the sense of rhythm somehow in the classical music is different. It's completely different. But yeah, regarding the classical music, yeah, most of my friends they find it extremely boring. They don't understand what's the point, and also what's the point of listening to this music live
Mhm.
when nothing happens for them. You know, they are
Mhm.
used see like shows with like light everywhere, like people moving, big stages, like big like effects with smoke here or there,
Yeah.
big stage. And it's true that when you listen to a symphony, and even if the conductor moves, he still stays in the same
Hmm.
space, and everybody's sitting most of the time. So I understand actually. I understand, and that for some people the live performance cannot be only something about sound. That it
Hmm.
has to be also like there has to be like choreography. There has to be, and in a way, when you attend to a big show, I don't know like if it's like Rihanna or if it's like Lana Del Rey or if it's like
It's well made. It's well made, you
yeah,
know.
in a way, you get like you get what you want. You actually
Yeah.
pay a high price, but in the end, it's a full show, and it's very satisfying in a way.
I have a conspiracy theory about
Oh,
the reaction to classical music. Um, you know, about like 10 years ago, I started to notice that um, I constantly see in the movies or in a TV shows or episodes jokes about classical music. Oh, it's boring. Or it's yeah, I went to opera, I had great sleep and stuff like this, right? So I think that classical music it became in a very vulnerable position because of course we don't have as much money as the pop industry has, right? So we can't defend ourselves. Yet I still believe that classical music on its own as value is the best music we have.
yeah. There is also, it's you said like these little lines in some cinema, in some series or
Yeah.
programs, some TV shows, saying, "Oh, boring," or "too long."
Hmm.
Or,
Hmm.
but there is also like most of the time the nasty one, the nasty guy in a movie. Of course, he listens to classical music.
Right, right, exactly. Yes.
Mads Mikkelsen in a Casino. Is it in Casino Royale that he's there? The Chiffre? I don't know if it's the one. Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So of course he listened. And the bad guy, the Nazi guy in Shutter
Yeah,
Island.
yeah, yeah. I was about to
Schubert.
mention
Of
him.
course he listened to Schubert. What else? Huh? So
Or
um,
Wagner. Yeah.
yeah, but there was actually it's for a long time already, because if you look at the end, actually what we call the contemporary music,
Hmm.
this is there is a key for understanding, and this I understand very well the how the masses react to the classical music because of that now. At the end of the Second World War,
Hmm.
um, actually, when we looked at the ruins of Europe, when we look at what happened and how and when we started to actually study Nazi theories, Nazi system, and there were more and more like philosophers, writers saying, "Oh, but look, there is a connection actually between these romantic things, like all this classical music, all these theories, idealistic, like from also Wagner, Nietzsche, and there is a connection between this and what happened in the
Hmm.
concentration camp and the horrors of the Nazi regime." And what happened after the Second World War is that all the artists that were banned by the Nazis, that were considered like degenerated, they became heroes. Not they didn't do anything. They just had to be refused by the monsters to become the angels of the new
Hmm.
time. And everything got defined from that, from
Hmm.
Schoenberg, from all the art that was considered like too modern or degenerated by the Nazis. It became the new basis. And this
Hmm.
is also from that, and it's very political, is that in a way, the contemporary music, the exploration, the dodecaphonic things, and all this actually putting all the old systems and the old authorities under question. It was not only under question, it was like to even like hate this, because somehow it was unconsciously or consciously related to what brought the Nazis. If you read like Theodor Adorno, for example, he
Hmm.
almost very clear writes this like black on white.
Hmm.
This kind of beauty of the tonal music, of the realism in the painting and everything, led to this barbarian Nazi thing, like the rational, super rational barbarian thing.
Hmm.
And the dodecaphonic system, for example, brings more freedom. They were all actually very Marxist but
Hmm.
Marxist in a very weird way, because they were really like someone like Luigi Nono, for example, later in the century, was convinced that the dodecaphonic music was the music of the masses, and he went in the factories of Italy to preach in front of workers that listen to your music. which is completely mad when you think about this. It
A
would
brave man.
never have any chance to become like a folk music of any kind. So they were, for me, they were still romantic. Schoenberg, Nono, Boulez, their music sounds anything but romantic because they hated everything. But they were still about their posture, about how they deal with the society, about how they define themselves by refusing something, by opposing to something. They were still the romantic because what defines romanticism is that the condition of an individual that refuses to live in. So it was like, for example, Musset growing up in a France that was like in ruins after Napoleon Wars, or Balzac refusing the Republic and standing for the king and building this all human theory on this thing and mystical concepts. So it's and Baudelaire. What about Baudelaire? It's always and Hugo also refusing like inequality, and there is always something romantics. There is always like what rebellion against something, right? Is in the romantic mind is opposed to what is classical, what is academic.
It's
So Boulez, Stockhausen, they were caged. They were still romantic. It's just that their music was refusing anything that the romantic music had that was remaining of the classical. Actually, that sound familiar to really be like something like a rebellion. And because of that posture, the audience started to leave progressively. Because if you look at how successful was the classical music in the 19th century, it's still the music that we listen. The classical music lovers they listen to. It's 98% like is the 19th century music. It's the most beloved repertoire. And this music still speaks about us. We are not so far from the individuals of the 19th century. It was already industrial era. It was already republic, like attempts of republic democracy, of like a system where everybody can get like by working, getting money. And it's still somehow the system, the technology is much more advanced now, but we are not so far from that system. And also the wars that were like terribly deadly for millions of people with like technological weapons. It was already like this in the 19th century. So that's why also I think that this music still speaks to us so much. But what about the music of nowadays, the classical music of nowadays? And now there is this contemporary atonal, noisy stuff that most of the audience doesn't, the audiences, how the audiences in 19th century, they were reacting to, they were actually attending, for example, in Italy, the Verdi operas are part of the Italian history. And the people were singing that in the street, and everybody had a piano at home, and everybody was sight reading on Sundays the passage of Wagner operas, or no, or whatever. So classical music became very popular in the 19th century, which was not the case in the 18th century, for example. In the 18th century, it was aristocratic, aristocrats having this as an entertainment, and there was the folk music for the people. But in the 19th century, the piano became the instrument of the people that could access to the social class with earning a bit more money and making a better living. They could get an upright piano, they could have it at their place and start practicing. And when you reach this middle class, of course, you will actually put your children in a piano class and in a piano lesson, and they will. This is the world where we grew up. We still belong to that world. So I really think that in all this, the contemporary music, the so-called contemporary music, really played a nasty game, a nasty trick. Because when you like the people the students when they practice the piano, for example, today, what they will learn some it will always be romantic music. A Chopin dance, it would be like, or even a Hans Zimmer Interstellar, always like, or an Audi, it's still like a romantic piano. This is the kind of feeling, the world of feelings that people love. And when a very advanced pianist will actually apply for a piano competition, what will he play? Tchaikovsky concerto, Grieg concerto, Beethoven concerto. Who would play the Lutosławski? Who would play the Ligeti piano concerto? No, nobody, or even Schoenberg.
There is also a particular reason that the limited repertoire of orchestras, who they often dictate. I believe that we have to play more concerti for competitions. Even from the Romantic era, we have Hummel, fantastic second concerto. We have Clara Schumann. We have lots of actually music that deserves. Not to mention Kapustin concerti, which are extremely. Do you like Kapustin?
Yeah. For me, I didn't dig a lot in his music, but I listened. I saw that he wrote also chamber music, like violin
Hmm.
sonatas, and
Yeah.
so I'm very interested. For now, after a few minutes, I get it's difficult for me to hear that there is something new going on. It's very very enjoyable, and I like also to look at the scores because it's very challenging intellectually.
Hmm.
There is like some rhythmical how to say like pleasure, very very particular because it's not jazz, it's not classical, it's not jazz, it's something else. He created the style, obviously, uh, and his style is very recognizable from a piece to the other, which I like. But I would say that if you ask me what I really like in Kapustin, I could say like maybe the book of the eight etudes. I don't know, it's Opus 40. Is it?
Opus, yeah, it's Opus 40. Yeah.
Yeah, this I like very much because there is diversity. There are like slow ones, toccata style some. So
Mm.
I got very inspired by these ones also when I write my piano pieces. I think that they stand out of the piano repertoire, contemporary piano repertoire. But then when I listen to bigger forms, there is one sonata that I liked. I don't remember which one it was, but there were
It's
one that
either second, I think, or
yeah,
either two or 12. Yeah. Yeah,
second. Yeah,
these
it's very well
are.
shaped.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay, I actually when you mentioned, about 5 or 6 years ago, I've learned that Luca Debargue is composing, and I was uh, given the fact that we are living in 21st century, so I was really scared to take a look at this because I expected it to be something Ligeti style or
Oh,
something very very avant-garde, even for my experienced ears. But I was so pleased to hear your cello sonata.
yeah.
Uh, uh, I'm so happy to hear composers leading towards post-romantic style of composing. I would say I would probably it's because it's even not it's not even modern to
Well,
me. Insert. Uh,
if you are curious enough, I posted some more things on my channel recently. I posted my string quartet.
yes, I just listened to this a couple days ago. Yeah.
I think because the cello sonata for me is there is a curse with this piece. I don't know how many versions I wrote, and it's very complicated for me because the themes it will remain forever my opus one for sure, but I will come back to it many many times. I know it already, and I'm working on it for years and years, and the themes I found very early, like I found it in my teens, because I
Mhm.
started writing music as soon as I started to practice. It all went together, like improvisation, composition. For me, it was natural. I didn't never ask myself about that. I saw a piano, I wanted to started improvising, find things from ear, starting like to write a bit. So all this was very natural, but of course I didn't have any knowledge.
Mm.
Uh, but the themes were there, so I took note of them, and I'm still obsessed by them, and I still want to find an absolutely ideal shape. Uh, a piece, I would even say like the style or the language of a piece depends on the themes. Uh, the themes of my cello sonata cannot be anything else than romantic. They require, they scream for a romantic treatment, but I'm not happy of what I found because I still think that at that moment when I wrote the last version, so I would say like 5 years ago, I was not so confident in my writing abilities, like the harmonic knowledge and the
Mhm.
science of musical writing abilities. And so it is, speaking about the ways of expression, it's a bit too simple for me. And
Mm.
I didn't manage in this romantic musical environment, to still find a way to surprise more, to actually be more captivating.
Mhm.
This is the thing is that, for example, when sometimes my toccata, for example, a solo piano piece, the idea somehow there is an idea that is like post-Baroque and an idea that is more like modern, very rhythmical. And it was somehow easier because the combination of the Baroque and the modern together, the environment it created on the solo piano and the toccata restriction created something that was easy to deal with.
Mhm.
With a cello and a piano with themes that are romantic, oi, extremely hard. And I wrote a violin sonata that is sounding more modern, but just because of the themes. The themes themselves, the way the intervals, the shape, create something else. I'm very much, what I'm passionate about is the music writing. Is that there is nothing special at having an idea, getting inspired with something. The main thing for me and what makes the difference between the composers is what you will do with your idea. You can have and you see the major composers like Beethoven, he can do a symphony with 2 or 3 notes. So it's all about how you will actually press
Develop. Yeah. It's about
with
development.
the musical matter and develop it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that our time has a problem with development, by the way. We are in a time where this is happening. I watch 10 seconds of it, then I jump. And in the music is the same. When you listen now to most of the compositions nowadays, whatever is the genre, it can be jazz, it can be pop, it's either a loop, so always the same thing, turning around the verse, the chorus are the same. There is no bridge, there is no modulation. Either it's jumping from an idea to the other like this, hysterically. So I think that our time has a problem with development. We have if I think that to make more interesting things would be to actually learn again to develop. Recently I watched an interview of Sting, legendary rock musician, and now he's this very wise man, very calm, very peaceful. But there is this fantastic interview. I invite you to go have a look. It's a 1 hour long. It's absolutely gorgeous. And he speaks really about universal musical matters. From his perspective of a pop singer and music writer, but everything he says makes sense for all musicians. He speaks actually about the song structure. He speaks about the bridge. He speaks about now in many songs he hears written by contemporary artists. There is no bridge. There is no modulation. While he says that it's a pity because a bridge brings another flavor. It brings if the for example the song is dramatic, it can bring some release. It's some relief. For example, if it's about a breakup, the bridge can tell something else. Like maybe there are other people that I can meet. There is hope, and it's in another key, And then you go back to the home key, and then you have another feeling. So in a 3-minute song, you can tell a lot of things. And if you listen to, for example, "We Are the Champions" of the Queen, "We Are the Champions," the verse is minor. But then it modulates to F major. And if you listen to Elton John, "I'm Still Standing," for example, you have the major verse, and the chorus is it's a minor, so major. And even in a simple pop song, you have the things that are the most important to manipulate in harmony, like major, minor, and it changes the expression, it changes the mood. And Sting kind of deplores the fact that nowadays it's not so important apparently for pop or composers in general. It's more about. It gives me the impression that nowadays it's more about the atmosphere.
Ambience.
You will have some loops and it can accompany you it can accompany your mood, but it's like you don't have the time to follow a composer, like you don't have the time to read a 1,000 page novel with a lot of characters where you have to concentrate to not forget who is who, and follow the developments of the story, so yeah. But about the composition, so it's a very important part of my activity. It serves for me directly also my views on interpretation. The fact that I'm a performer serves my composition and improvisation. All is actually connected, and it's good. I find it healthy to actually have these different ways of practicing, because for me, when I compose a piece, I'm practicing. I'm practicing, so I'm in the world of music. So I would say I cannot spend 8 hours a day just practicing my program at the piano. But I can very easily spend 8 hours a day on practicing music. If the 8 hours are just like composing, sight reading, making a fugue exercise, for example,
Hmm.
improvising for a bit. And this, for me, is healthy 8 hours of practice, musical practice, you know.
Yeah.
But 8 hours on the piano on the same Chopin etude, no. And for me, of course, I did that. Of course, at the moment when I was very stressed, when I was very young, in the conservatory, I said, I have to do this, I have to play this etude, I have to make this finger work smooth.
Hmm.
And I spent hours and hours, and then I realized that this is not the amount of time you spend doing this that will actually give you the key to all this. You have to be smart. It's the same
Hmm.
as everything else. If you renovate, you know, I was participating in renovating my flats before putting them on rent. And it's the same. You can actually go like this and say, "Oh, I will spend a lot of time and start doing things too quickly and too impulsively and forgetting to just sit down, think about what you will do, find a smart way actually." And it's exactly the same on the piano. And it's so funny to see like students that would ideally be like the peak of the intellectual level, you know, the peak of the European culture, that the smartest guys and everything, that they made it to the conservatory and they practice 8 hours the same piece. It's not smart. If you practice 8 hours, is that you don't know how to practice. It
Yeah.
should not be like this, you know. And we even have sometimes like a bit tense conversations with my girlfriend about that, because she says, "But how can you say that? You just say that because you are faster than the others. You are faster. So you have something in your fingers." And I said, "Yeah, please tell me what I have in the fingers that is so special. What is it?" "No, I'm like everybody else, and I just found my ways to actually practice so I can get a result." Uh,
Hmm.
and I will not say that I'm a lazy guy, but almost. I don't want to spend too much time on something when there is a little light in my head saying to me that no, I can get it faster than that. There is a way to get it faster than that.
Why don't you give us a quick overview on the program that you are planning to bring to Vancouver? Yeah.
So this program I play for a while already. I decided to actually play it a bit more than usual. Usually I play a program just for one season, and here it's already the second season where I continue playing this program. I think it works very well. I had like very strong responses from audiences and presenters until now. This program displays like the three same composers
Mhm.
in both parts, and I kind of thought I want these composers to meet through music that didn't have a chance to meet in life because they were like completely different times, different generations. You had Beethoven, end of 18th century and beginning of 19th. Then you had Chopin, that was actually publishing his first opus of etudes when approximately a bit after Beethoven died. And Fauré was born in 1845, so only a few years before the death of Chopin. So they absolutely had no chance to meet.
Mhm.
But I think that their music actually meets in some points, and I wanted actually to take the hand of the listener for a journey involving the music of these three major composers, and showing that there are more bridges between them that one may think at first listening. I like to actually use a recital program as an opportunity to create connections between the different pieces. So
Mhm.
here, like key relationships in each part. The three composers are Beethoven, Chopin, and Fauré, and I wanted to show different shades of their
Mhm.
art. So the first half of the program is very much around the E major minor key. So you have the Opus 90 Sonata of Beethoven, very special in two movements. One kind of desperate, very extreme in its expression. Simple, like not so many notes, but extreme. It explores like a big range of the piano. It shouts, it screams, and then goes back to more gentle feeling. And the second movement that sounds almost already like Schubert, with
Mhm.
like very soft cantilena, like a love song, a very gentle love song. The two movements, as always in Beethoven music, they are based on the same musical material, if you look well at it. Um, but the first movement is like in a minor shade, and the second movement in a major shade. Like he wanted to tell a love story, not his
Mhm.
love story for once, but the love story of his friend, aristocratic friend, to whom he dedicated this
Mhm.
sonata. The Chopin scherzo that closes the first half is the only major key scherzo that Chopin wrote. It's an absolute masterpiece of the late Chopin, very, very refined, in the way it's written. There is counterpoint everywhere. It's actually much more refined than it seems, because of course when you look at the score like a bit superficially, you see like a very like wild, big scale scherzo in ABA form with barcarola in the middle and everything. But when you look really at how it's written, how the voices mix, and how everything actually you see a motif and then the motif reversed that gives another. It's extremely well made, extremely like a little jewel of symphonic music written for piano. And with a beautiful C sharp minor barcarola in the center. So this is for the Chopin scherzo. And I opened the first half with the Fauré preludes that actually have a very, very special, played a very special role on my musical path, because this is that set of pieces that decided me to record all Fauré music for Sony 4 years ago. So I discovered it late in my life, because I'm a crazy sight reader. In my teens, I sight read a lot of music, not having the technical means to do it, but I sweat on so many pieces. I was sweating just sight reading and trying to get all this repertoire in my head somewhere.
Hmm.
So, but a lot of repertoire. But strangely, I stayed very far away from Fauré. I read a bit of it. I was not so much pleased. It was very awkwardly written for the piano,
Hmm.
not so comfortable, and I didn't understand his harmonic language, even in the early pieces. I was very challenged. I didn't see where it was going. I was finding it a bit like almost bad taste, almost a bit like uh, swamp,
Hmm.
harmonic swamp, a bit, how to say this, a bit melting, not
Hmm.
clear. It was missing clarity for me. So I didn't have, I had no key to this music, and it stayed very far away from my interest for years. But during the first pandemic lockdown 5 years ago, I I had some time. For once, I had some
Hmm.
time touring crazily, but just to have some time home. And this is the moment when I actually decided that, okay, I will open the piano music of Fauré and see what there is there. And I discovered there is much more than I thought, because I was counting on maybe like Ravel, Ravel catalog, like 2 hours for
Hmm.
piano. No, there
Hmm.
is 4.5 hours of music written during like more than 50 years, and with a big evolution of style. So straight I was thinking, oh, is it the French Scriabin? Starting like very romantic, very Chopin, and then moving towards something that is almost atonal.
Yeah.
And it's the case. And from a piece to another, you can really follow him develop a language that is more and more, I would not say obscure, because this was the first impression I got. But then now I think that it's extremely clear. But it's just that he removes progressively all that was the charming in the first pieces. In the late pieces, he removes this kind of charm. So it's not captivating. It's not caressing you uh, the way our hair grow. It's
Hmm.
caressing the other way around. It's a bit rough harmonies, more cold sometimes, but it's absolutely incredible music, and extremely precise, extremely fascinating about the writing and the subtlety and all the colors. It's completely unique. So for me, the set of preludes was a game changer in my approach of this music, because in these 9 pieces, Fauré shows all the best of his mature style. You have everything. So the harmonic complexity, the counterpoint. There is a canon, for example, one of the preludes, the sixth, is a perfect canon in octave, which is a wonderful tour de force.
Hmm.
You have like pieces that are more harmonic, pieces that are more virtuosic. The second prelude, for example, or the eighth. The eighth is kind of a toccata, like a perpetuum mobile, and the second is also a perpetuum mobile, like an etude on the trill. So you have like both hands playing extremely fast trills, and all the preludes are very short, like 2 or 3 minutes. But the whole set is really fascinating, because there
Hmm.
so much contrast, so much diversity, so much wit in all these pieces. So I decided to use it as a strong opener for my recital program.
Hmm.
Second half, also opens with Fauré, this time with female variations, which is probably one of his few piano pieces that are the easiest to approach. A lot of people coming from the audience that telling me about their experience of listening to the program told me that they found some similarities with Schumann, with Brahms even. It's true that the theme of this theme of variations is very regular. It's quite square, about like the metric is very square. It's built on the scale of C sharp minor,
Mm.
and the harmonic progression is like the circle of fifths, basically. So for the ear, it's easy to follow. And the theme is appearing very clearly in all the variations. And you can actually get very clearly how Fauré transforms the themes like rhythmically, harmonically, melodically. It's very easy to follow. So the audience, not knowing so much about this composer and his music, most of the time, audience is a bit impressed, a bit like scared about
Mhm.
discovering something that they don't know. And here, the themes, the way it's developed through the variations, it's actually quite ear friendly, I would say. So it was important for me to balance the impression that can give the preludes in the first half because the preludes are wilder. But
Mhm.
somehow having the theme and variations helps understand also what's going on in the preludes.
Mhm.
All the audience people with whom I talked about were very happy about this. Actually, they perceived very well what I did with
Mhm.
this program, balancing with the two big pieces of the set of preludes and the theme and variations. After the theme and variations, I play one of the hit standards of the piano repertoire, which is the called like Moonlight Sonata. That it's not a Beethoven who chose this title. It's like a typical publisher
Yeah.
thing to tell more. Um, so it's the second sonata of the Opus 27. That is a set of two sonatas. The first being also like quasi una fantasia.
Mhm.
And this is the main thing, is that this sonata is quasi una fantasia with a very unusual form. It starts with a slow movement, then a very short intermezzo, and it ends with a crazily, like very rough and noisy finale. Um, I'm I got asked, several times actually by some of my friends, some audience members, like, why are you playing this? Because we know you as being fascinated by less usual repertoire, exploring, like Szymanowski, Mettner, or Magin. Why are you playing this standard? Why? And even my manager, he told me, but why? Why are you playing this? Everybody plays it. And I said, no, because from time to time, I reread the whole set of Beethoven sonatas. I don't have it yet fully in memory. I have a lot of them. I maybe half of them are here, but still, I put the big Henley on my music stand and I go through all of them sometimes. I say, okay, now is a Beethoven moment. I will read all of them again. And
Mhm.
during one of the sessions, I realized something about this Moonlight Sonata. I really realized something that I really wanted to share. Um, So maybe a way of performing this piece that has not so much been explored yet. So here, maybe it's the occasion to talk about my approach of interpretation because there would be, I'm sure, some musicologists, some teachers, and some music lovers and critics that would say, "What is he saying? He considers that there are several ways of interpreting. No, there is the right way. That is the way of the score of the composer and of the pupil of the composer and the pupil of 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 the composer that you may have a master class once in your life when the man will be 90 years old and barely hearing anything, but you can say in your resume that you have worked with the man that had heard a man that had heard a man that one day had heard Beethoven, and this is what is right. I'm sorry to say, I don't believe at all in this way of dealing with our art. What we have is a score. We have a score. We have the biography of the composer. We have notes. We have like plenty of researches. In the case of Beethoven, in the case of Chopin, we have plenty. Fauré, less. But Beethoven, we have plenty. We can read his own letters, how he liked to be performed, how it. So I would say, okay, first of all, let's look at this.
Mhm.
Let's look at this before listening to what a teacher or what a critic or musicologist will say. Just look at the letters first. And first of all, very first of all, look at the score. When I read on the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata, Adagio, and senza sordino, and it's very clear for me. It has to be played adagio and senza sordino, and we've just I just when I read it again, I just read it with the score like the way I was that would be like the most how to say as least as how to say not interfering with the score as less as possible.
Hmm.
Looking at this and playing. Okay, what's going on here? There are three voices. The bass that goes down, the triplet, that is actually the harmony, the continuum, the rhythmical
Hmm.
continuum and the harmony. And you have this funeral march on the top with the dotted rhythm. Okay, this is the musical informations. And then I just realized, but okay, I cannot, I heard it. Then when I listened to some versions, it was always too fast for me because there is something about the balance between the harmonic information that is quite dense in this movement. A lot of things are going on harmonically.
Hmm.
There is the weight of the bass, of the bass, and there is this funeral march on the top and the soprano. And somehow I needed to play it slower than
Hmm.
we are used to somehow. And then it sounded more suddenly like an organ chorale.
Hmm.
And suddenly the whole piece made more sense to me. I said, and this is also how I realized that, but it's the same musical content than in the finale. It's just organized differently, but it's
Hmm.
exactly the same. The C sharp minor arpeggio, even some harmonic progression. There are two pages of the finale that reproduce exactly the same harmonic progression. And
Hmm.
it's not only like a 2-5-1 functions, it's really like the whole progression of a passage that is exactly the same. So he knew exactly what he was doing, obviously.
Hmm.
So I kind of had this vision of this piece being the two sides of the same medal. It's really like the two faces of the same character with like this interlude in between that is also made out of the same musical information, but from a like let's take a break, you know.
Hmm.
The first movement was very intense, very extreme on its own,
Hmm.
and the next one will also be. And we just have this little break. A bit like in the Shostakovich Fourth Symphony, you know, when you
Hmm.
have like elephants, like in the first movement and last movement, and in
Yeah.
between you have little things like just to joke around and take a breath. Even if in Shostakovich a joke is never completely a joke, or it's very heavy sarcasm.
Hmm.
But uh, but but here in this sonata, I just had to say, yeah, you know, then I realized suddenly, but if it's played a bit faster, then it becomes pretty. Then it becomes just this promenade on a lake and the moonlight, and it becomes like, for me, the whole musical drama cannot be if it's so.
Hmm.
So I was looking then for a tempo. Of course, if it's not largo, it cannot be largo. It has, but with the triplet energy, you can keep some movement, but still have let the harmony express itself with enough weight, you know. And the problem is that if it's too like to-da-di, 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 to, there is no weight anymore, and you just concentrate on this kind of trance of the triplet, and nothing goes on. Well, it's just like I started playing and really like no sordino, but really like sotto voce, like very very
Hmm.
little sound for the arpeggio, just enough for the harmony to like a Alberti bass, just for the harmony to be there, and the bass and the soprano. And I started to hear music that I never heard before.
Hmm.
So I allow myself to share this vision. Yes, it is personal, but I don't think I betrayed the score. I'm looking closely to the score. I don't want to just replace Beethoven, which, but I don't think that anything would be against that in what is written on the score.
Hmm.
But I would really like to I did already I like to share this vision with the audience because I think that there is a way there in that
Okay, okay, we'll be looking forward. And you're gonna
ballad.
be closing with
And it's the third
so.
ballad, the third Chopin ballad. So I'm kind of like finishing with the because in all my recital programs before I'm on, almost reaching the four scherzi and four ballad. I played all the other ballads before. So now is the last one is the one that I never played before. And I also had kind of a revelation with Chopin recently. I was a crazy Lisztian before. I was in that sense, not in a way that I'm good at playing Liszt, but just that I was obsessed with Liszt all the time, like Mephistopheles, Second Ballade, Dante Fantasy, Sonata, all the big the masterpieces for piano and the etudes as well. I was absolutely crazy about his language, and I always kind of felt comfortable playing his pieces. It was not I was not like really scratching my head about like how would I perform this piece with Liszt. Of course, it's hard, it requires practice, but once it's in the fingers, I always felt comfortable with this music.
Hmm.
Chopin, contrary completely. I always was in love with this music, but could not find a way to perform it. I could not find some comfort. I was always it was always too many questions. Too many
Hmm.
questions. Should I do this? Should I do that? What would be the most true? Because it's extremely intricate. You know, you have this voice dying, and then you have this other voice, and you have all these things, and how to dose the sound between the fingers. It's extremely subtle and refined. And a piece like the Barcarolle, for example, I remember I became crazy just studying this because it's putting this in your fingers is one thing, but then deciding what to do with it, oh my goodness.
Layering.
And trying to take care of all the informations that are there and at the same time to make it spontaneous
Hmm.
because the late Chopin was very much like this, like in the third sonata, you know, it has to sound like improvised somehow, which is oh my, or the Polonaise fantasy, you know, how to do this, how to achieve this with a music that is so subtly arranged and crafted.
Hmm.
I could not find. And actually, recently, um I decided to just go nuts go nuts, like thinking this is an improvisation, and I will try to actually think that the notes are like words, and I will try to speak this music. So as if I would say with some words. So where is the accent? Where is the down point, and how
Hmm.
to? I won't think about like how should I build this phrase. I will just try to sing and say the phrase with my fingers. And what happened doing that is that the timing became for me playing this much more flexible. So I just avoided being concerned about, oh, I have to fall at this moment. I have to make the phrase fall at this moment. And if I miss it, everything is dead. I stopped stressing about that. I just carried carried the phrase and tried to just follow it
Hmm.
and be confident. And that's how in the third ballad I really um, reached the point when I consider this beginning, the two first pages, as uh, improvised introduction, because the first moment when the rhythm really starts to come in is here. With this tarum, tarum, tarum. But before I would really there are so many things happening, and here again, like in Beethoven, the harmonies require some weight, and the weight you can get with the time, with the timing. So like progressively opening. That is actually the main idea of the whole piece. And here, the top voice should stay. And here you have the wonderful full tone scale with the appoggiatura. And somehow, if it's played too much in rhythm, like you don't hear anything of the music. You don't hear the suspension. Of course, if it would be an orchestra, probably the players would have to play with there would be less flexibility. But to have these orchestral colors at the piano, to have these different layers, to have like because here obviously like it's the winds. The top voices are the winds, and then of course it's a cello here. So just the different, the balance between the winds and the cello, how to organize this and how to find the right weight of the sound, you will find with the timing. And I I become more and more radical with this
Hmm.
when there's someone in front of me like saying, "But how can you be so free with the timing? It's impossible. It has to be. Otherwise, if we don't have the rhythm, we don't have the meaning." I said, "No, it's the contrary. If we don't have the right timing to create all these colors and everything, then you cannot sing the phrase, and the music doesn't make sense." And here
Okay.
we are back to the conversation we had about the freedom of timing with the classical music, is that the classical music, to express what it has, the best it has to give, there is this special kind of sense of rhythm that cannot be square. This is a fascinating talk we had with my girlfriend recently about Glenn Gould. Uh, because I re-listened to the second version of the Goldberg, the 81, if I'm not mistaken. I am personally crazy about the first version, about the live version that I find absolutely extraordinary and so spontaneous and so warm. I was not so crazy about the second one, but I re-listened to it and I was just mind blown by the ideas because probably I was not ready yet before to understand, but now I understood, like keeping the same tempo throughout the whole cycle of variations, not doing any reprise, no repetition, just putting all the Goldbergs in 45, 50 minutes. And I said to my girlfriend, like, but how is it possible that that he is so expressive, so lyrical, but being so metronomical at the same time? How does he achieve that? How can this sing as much as that and be smart as much as that and touching as much as that, being so regular? And she smiled at me because she's a crazy Gould fan. She knows a lot more than me. And she told me, try an experience. Actually, put headphones and put the Gould version in your ears and play at the same time. And you will realize something. And I tried it and I realized that there are a huge amount of micro timings. You don't when you listen like the whole thing, you don't pay attention. But when you listen extremely carefully, like playing playback on it, you realize that there are like little fractions of time
Hmm.
everywhere. And of course, this is how the music gets so expressive.
Hmm.
How expression is carried through. So this became, of course, I realized even more how Gould was a genius of a very special kind. But this is what I try to achieve. And I'm sure that most of the time I don't reach it or I don't ideally reach it. But the same in the final movement of the Moonlight Sonata, that it cannot be. It has to have some kind of motoric feeling, so some kind
Hmm.
of clarity. But the main thing is that it has to be this huge tsunami wave.
Hmm.
The rhythm is more like the two bars. Yeah, and the real rhythm is actually to carry this whole line from this whole wave from down to up, not losing the character, not losing the feeling.
Hmm.
Not like otherwise there is no music there. So but it's difficult. I'm still looking for the right words, for the right way to express all these things. I'm constantly thinking about all this, and
It's
but what I can tell you is that I became kind of more radical with how I treat the rhythmical element in the
mm,
music for the sake of harmony, most of all.
hmm. It's so interesting. You're so passionate on the stage, and you even more passionate when you talk about music. Are you working as professor right now anywhere?
No, I'm not working. I was actually I got some proposals to get some positions here or there, but I never accepted because of my schedule.
Mm.
Playing like 60, 70 concerts a year, I mean, to follow students is kind of mad. I
Hmm.
not do that. Maybe one day I would reduce the rhythm of the concerts and then I can get a position somewhere. The thing is that for me, it's not so much about teaching. I find actually interesting to stay fully when I'm in touch with with students or even like students that are almost my age, to approach it really as a performer, as a concert pianist. Because in most cases, when I have like a workshop or masterclass with students, they already have very serious teachers. They already have a very serious level, and they are well followed, they are well guided, well led. It's very seldom that I meet someone saying, "I'm lost. I'm completely lost."
Hmm.
So when it's like this, some students write to me on social media sometimes, like saying to me, "I am lost. Can we meet?" And sometimes when I have some time, I meet. I take a coffee. I listen to them maybe for 5 or 10 minutes. I give some advices just to make to give a bit of warmth, because I know how much it's important. I miss that in some moments of my
Hmm.
life. Just to give it, I cannot do anything for you. I cannot save you because I'm touring constantly. I cannot follow you. I cannot make you, but maybe I can recommend this, maybe go for this teacher, maybe try this musical academy also. So when I have the opportunity, I do this with students who write to me. But when there is an organized workshop or masterclass, I really approach it and I make a little speech at the beginning saying, I am not your teacher. I am a concert pianist visiting this city, playing a concert here. And I want to have this musical exchange now,
Hmm.
like be staying a performer, staying a concert pianist, and sharing with you some reflection about like my look at the situation uh, as a concert pianist. So I would like what I would say to be complementary with what your teacher says. It
Hmm.
can, in any case, it cannot replace what the teacher says because we are not talking in the same temporality. Your teacher is following you during the year. I'm just seeing you now around my concert. So it's only like a photograph. You will play for me, depending on the mood, depending on where you are and everything, you will give something. I have no idea of the person with
Hmm.
like an old program and everything. It's just a little photograph. So I can just make some remarks that are related to stage.
Hmm.
So this is one of the main questions I ask to the students is, do you have a goal? Like, do you want to be? And it's sometimes very hard for them. They are in their 20s, very feeling insecure. But I think it's a very important question. Do you want to become? Do you want to actually live on stage? Do you want to, and it's not even like related to money but do you want, even if you have another job, do you want to be professionally involved on stage or not? And it's very important because then I would modulate, I would not say the same things, you know.
Hmm.
Um, Simply because the level of the requirement of the student with himself or herself won't be
Yeah.
the same. If it's about enjoying from time to time, playing with other musicians, mastering some elements of difficult scores, or if it's like being able to carry a concert, a musical performance, even as a profession, an advanced amateur. If you have like
Hmm.
once in a while, like to play a 30 minutes part of a recital in front of an audience. You
Hmm.
are in a professional condition, and then there are some things that, the way I would look at someone's playing would be different if I know that there is this expectation. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, 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 indeed, of
I
course.
will, I
I
would
think.
not teach. I would not teach what is right or what is wrong. I would actually give some advices, some very like technical about the hands position, about the body in general, about sound. Most of the remarks, most of the comments would be on the sound and the time. I always believe that the students are very intelligent and that they are perfectly able to read the score at a certain level of the piano. So I won't tell, look at the score, it's written that. No, they are perfectly able to do that, and I will take what they do as a choice.
Hmm.
Only when it goes very much against the score, I will remind them, hey, you have lost this, don't forget this element.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I take it as a principle that the students, they know the piece they are playing,
Hmm.
know about the score, they don't need me to remind them that there is a score somewhere to look at.
Yeah. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to young generations of musicians?
Well, I think it's really healthy to ask oneself, to ask yourself the question, why am I doing that? What is there about music that I love it so much that I really want to do something? I want to invest in that, give effort to make it better. You know, it's a Gidon Kremer. I'm involved with him we had like fantastic projects together, and we are
Hmm.
a very like friendly, strong partnership together with music making. And he told me this anecdote about how when he entered the class of Oistrakh in Moscow, uh, he entered it like everybody perceived him as a weirdo, a bit like the guy that is constantly practicing, so serious, so serious. And he told me this story that he asked the other students of Oistra at the moment when they were probably having a tea or somewhere all together without the teacher. And he asked them the question, why are you doing music? And they were feeling
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable. And after a little moment, he actually said himself, he said, okay, for me, it's easy to answer the question. I have even several answers to that question. And it's important to ask this question. And I agree with him. I agree with him. Uh, Today might not be the same answers I give to this question than yesterday or tomorrow, but I have always there are always reasons. You know, when you are, it's important because there are so many things. It's so easy to fall with the music practice in something like, okay, I started music because my parents put me on the piano one day, and then it became something, a part of my life that I kind of kept. And it was always important for me to get better at this as a principle, just get better, learning more and more difficult pieces as a principle. But then where does it go? And sometimes I know that it can hurt. For some students, it's better probably to stay in this kind of uh, how to say, this detached approach, like say, yeah, I do that because I do that, and there is no reason. But I think that if you actually go to a masterclass meeting with a concert pianist, it's a serious thing, and you cannot expect the concert pianist to just be here feeling like on holiday and just like sharing like a small talk or everything. There is like a purpose, and we are here to talk about music, and we are supposed to have a very tight relationship with music, a very intimate relationship with music. So well, but you cannot escape infinitely the question why. So why am I playing Rack Free? Just for the sake of playing it, but why? What is there in this music that I want to share or maybe play for myself? But what is the aim of all
Mm-hmm.
this? And I believe that if we are here meeting in a masterclass like me, it's just that they want maybe to get something from me, and I also want to get something from them. When I'm doing a masterclass, I'm fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
I could spend 4 hours with 4 hours with the same student. There are always, I'm never bored of doing this because it's about sharing music when it goes well. It's about like at the piano, the beloved piano, um, sharing beautiful music together, finding things maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I There were some times when during a masterclass I realized something I didn't before, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so interesting. Our new artist director, Charles Amlen, Charles Richard Amlen,
ah,
and I was making an interview with him 2 or 3 years ago. And when I asked him to name 10 the most interesting artists of our time, one of them were you. So he named you. Can you name your favorite 10, maybe less than 10, a few contemporary artists that you really admire?
pianists.
Pianists.
Okay, well, there are some I think almost every day about them. So I guess that I'm really paying a lot of attention to what they are doing. But there are a lot of others that I'm following because I'm very interested. And there are a few ones where they did one thing that impressed me very much, and that became kind of a cornerstone of my inner shelter and
Hmm.
inner catalog. So I can give a bit of some names, and I can then maybe develop comment on why I chose why this name. But yeah, I'm following. I'm very attentive to what the pianists of different generations of the living ones today, what they are proposing, what they are doing. And honestly, I am able to tell you that only a very few major names out there, I'm very few of them are not interesting for me. Most of them are extremely interesting. Most of them, for one, at least for one thing in their approach. So Um, with whom will I start? I am always, I would say that for me, probably the name number one, that is always there in my mind and my heart. And I had a lot of luck because I worked with him. I played with him. I admired him much before having the opportunity to work with him. But we became somehow, there is a friendly relationship between us now with music, through music. It's Misha Pletnyov. And when I listen to what he does, I'm always impressed. Always. Even when I'm not convinced or where I think maybe this is too much or maybe it's not enough. Uh, this man is probably the one among the living pianists who has achieved, who is the only one probably that I know that has achieved uh, that all the parameters that are the most important for me, they are all more than high with him. He managed to do everything at once. He has the craziest harmonic ear that one can imagine at the piano. This his sense of singing, of carrying the melody, and the sense of rhythm, his fantasy, his spontaneous sense of like spontaneity,
Hmm.
uh, his skills as an improviser are absolutely unbelievable, and he's not demonstrating them so much in concert, but I I saw this, I heard this, and it's absolutely unbelievable. He's also a composer. Uh, and the repertoire that he has in his mind, the catalog of the how is the way he's placed in music, in the musical world, how he lives in the dimension of music is really really special.
Hmm.
I know that he's a controversial man for this or that. There are many many things around him. Um, I'm conscious of this, but I'm mostly speaking for a musical point of view, and we really became like musical friends. I
Hmm.
don't know him very much personally. So I heard people that knew him more tell me things, and I said, "Yeah, okay." We with Mikhail, we mostly know each other like through music
Hmm.
and around the piano. So I talk about this. I will not talk about other things.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh, so this is for him. Another performer of the how to say like a senior generation, like a advanced generation that I admire very much is Ondras Schiff. Ondras Schiff and all, him for some special reasons. Um, I don't think he's the most impressive pianist I ever saw play. It's not so much about the piano. And this is what I like very much about with him. And he pushes it even quite far because I attended some of his concerts where I didn't like so much his sound. I found his sound not very refined, not very. But there is a musical intelligence in this man, a musical knowledge, a musical like the shape,
Hmm.
what he carries when he plays a piece, the shape he gives to the whole thing, how his brain, when playing a passage, is already in another passage, is already the intelligence he has of the music. I like it very much, and it's always attending one of his performances. I always learn something. He's a
Hmm.
great pedagogue. He's pedagogue is a performing pedagogue for me. Listening to him playing, I learn a lot about music in general. I would not say I learned about piano because for me, it's not so much about that with Andras
Hmm.
Schiff. But I admire him very much. Who else? Who else I would say, I would say I'm sure that I will regret that I will forget too many of the fascinating guys. Um, I attended two performances of Trifonov, I think, in the last years, and for sure there is something very very special about him, extremely special. But I don't know why I always felt it made me feel uncomfortable. It put me in a place where I felt kind of almost in danger because this man has a huge musical charisma. He can really make inner plates move inside, and I was extremely. He reached some of the deepest place, and he is digging into dark places. I noticed this in at least I don't know. I don't know what it would be with other repertoire because I listened to him with a Chopin program around the funeral sonata, and
Uh-huh.
I heard him in his own piano quintet, and the all concerts were very very dark pieces.
Hmm.
So I never heard him in something lighter like a Gershwin concerto or I don't know in CDs, recordings, of course, but not in live performance. And with Trifonov, I would say to somebody who would tell me, "Oh yeah, he's a fantastic pianist. Did you hear his recording?" I said, "Yeah, of course I heard the recordings, but don't say anything before you hear this man live, because most of what I felt with from Trifonov, I felt it live. And what I can say is that I didn't recognize the pieces he was playing. Not because I didn't know, not because of his playing was so weird, just because he put me in such a place. I still remember, I shiver. He scared me. He
Hmm.
scared me, which is very strong. I mean, only a few performers are able to do this. It
Hmm.
was scary. And I'm not talking about how he moves like playing. Some people, when I say that Trifonov is scary, they say, ah, yeah, the way he moves. No, 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 I'm not talking about that.
Hmm.
Most of the time when I listen to concert, I close my eyes. I'm not interested in looking at the
Yeah.
performer. But he is a, he is an incredible storyteller and
Yeah.
scary one. It's scary. So, but I'm very happy that he's around and I'm very happy that
Yeah.
he's and sharing his heart. And I think he's absolutely exceptional artist.
We attended his concert here in Vancouver. He played Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto,
Yeah.
and you described exactly the feeling we had. I remember that I was holding my chair like this
Yeah.
for some reason because he was just playing on the limit, I would say. Maybe this
Yeah.
is the most scary thing when you hear that person is on the border of on the edge. So thank you. Who else?
Who else? Of course, I was very. I cannot talk about him like with just how to say like without affection. But Alex Kantorov is a friend of mine. So
Exactly.
and we talk about each. I mean, he talks about me like being a grand brother. I'm talking about him about being a little brother. But maybe he's in a way he's a grand brother also because he has, as a pianist, he has much more experience than I do. He's a very, for a long time, he's an accomplished pianist. And I can tell you the first time I saw him arrive in Rena's class, and he was a 18 or 19 years old boy. It was 5 or 6 years before the Tchaikovsky competition, maybe. And he was already playing crazy. He was playing like Bartok Rhapsodies, like Petrushka, or I don't remember, like crazy thing. He was totally accomplished, like not moving, not sweating, playing everything right. A bit cold, I would say.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everything was there. Everything,
Hmm.
like very refined touch, very big, crazy sense of timing. Rena, at the beginning, she was not so interested to work with him because he was so accomplished. And Rena kind of specialized in profiles of lost, the society of the lost pianist poets, So
Hmm.
somebody like Alex, she said, like, what can I do for you? Yeah, you can already do whatever you want. So, but then they started to work and she prepared him to Tchaikovsky competition 2019. And I followed him, I supported him, I texted him, I called him when he was there in Moscow. And it is very touching memories, very nice moments. And now he's just at the peak. He has an absolutely incredible career. And I'm very happy for him. And I wish him only the best to to experiment, to be as free as possible with the opportunities he has.
Hmm.
Um, I still believe that the best still remains to come because he's still now touring mostly with the pieces of the competition, still with a very solid repertoire. But I cannot wait to see him actually explore new ways,
Mm.
uh, sharing new musical things, like taking risks and things like this. And I think he's a really great musician, and he's also and which is very important, is a wonderful soul, is a wonderful human being. He's a
Hmm.
very good person, and it's fantastic to see somebody at this level of fame, at this level of professional achievement
Hmm.
and recognition, being still
Humble.
such a good person.
Yeah,
He's a true good person.
that's
So,
great.
and we need that. We need that. We don't. There is a space for everyone. There is a space for the classical music entertainers. I'm happy to have them too. But to see such a soul like Alex Kantorov is very nice for me because he plays music with his heart. He's very honest, sincere, wants the best, like very, very smart and very no, he's and caring about others. So no, I'm really happy that he's around. So you see, I have like special reasons
No,
to
no,
love him.
that's why I asked you, because I think it's very, very interesting. And I probably need to let you go because I took you twice as long as as I promised. And thank you so much for this conversation. We're really looking forward to see you play at Playhouse on February 17th on a family day. Looking forward.
Я тоже.
Thank you so much.
Ciao, ciao. До скорого.